I'm Matthew Kerbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to How to Run a Practice in 2025. We are continuing our conversation about AI. So this is part 2. If you missed part 1, hit pause and go back and watch part 1 so you can get all of the nuggets of information about AI in that episode. And then Matthew and I will continue our conversation about AI now. Hope you enjoy.
So, Gemini built in, included in Google Workspace, it's okay. It's not great, but I think it's only going to get better, right? And it's still, if you leverage these tools right, you're going to save a lot of time, which is what this is all about. I would just recommend the lawyers out there, in particular, if you're a Google Workspace subscriber, that you check out Notebook LM. And, you could just Google it, obviously, or, Perplexity it, but it's just notebooklm.google.com. That's the URL. And it has become like my favorite AI tool for exactly what you're talking about, Lauren, like uploading everything that's in your knowledge base and being able to query against it. There's no way for you to like let in your clients into that knowledge base to query against it. Some legal like practice management software tools are doing this, right? So I know Clio Duo is Clio's version of this. MyCase and AffiniPay have something called MyCase IQ and AffiniPay IQ. And I think they're like, I know less about that, but I think they're also going to be letting you do some stuff like that. And Filevine has had AI incorporated into their software for a while now. I don't know if you've been able to do exactly that type of thing where you could just query against all of your case data. So for certain legal tech built for solo and small firm attorneys, that is releasing, or it's released at the time that you're listening to this. But if you don't use those tools, Notebook LM is a phenomenal other source. And what also is really important is for lawyers is that at least when I originally signed in and started using it, and I screenshotted this, and maybe in the show notes, I'll have links to that. It says, we do not train our large language models on anything you put into Notebook LM. Like everything in here is secure and private just for you. And like, that is huge for law firms.
Yeah, that's critical because that I think is what folks are always, and we hear about, right? The security issues with it on these like open source ones is you're now feeding the open source with potentially sensitive information. So yeah, I certainly never use even something like Claude. I don't put client name. It's nothing specific to them. It's more generic language work, but it is really powerful. And I can see when you have decades worth of pleadings to be able to go in and say, I remember writing this really specific issue 5 years ago. Wouldn't it be so nice if you could prompt your sort of local AI knowledge base to say, give me the documents on that? And then it pops up like, how much time can you imagine saving doing that?
Yeah, I mean, so much time. I'll reference an earlier part in my legal career when I just came over to the insurance defense firm that I worked at for 5 years. I got a nail salon case. And I was like, a nail salon case? Like, there's going to be a lot of unique things about this. And I have only been an insurance defense attorney for a few months. And I asked the partner who gave it to me, they're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody in the firm once worked on a nail salon case. How about you call around and find out like who worked on it and if they could tell you what the file number was. And so finally I found the partner at the firm. It was like my 5th call who worked on it. And, lawyers are pretty smart and we tend to have pretty good memories. He was like, yeah, I did work on a nail salon case, actually, now that you mention it. Let me find the file. Let me think about what the file number might be on that, and I'll let you know. And, still pretty impressively, like later that day, he let me know the file number, and I was able to go in there, find the interrogatories, find the production requests that were all very relevant and already drafted to the nail salon thing, right? But I got lucky that I got that done in a day. Now what you could do, and I think, I don't actually know that this is what's happening because Harvey AI is only for the big law firms, but I suspect that that is part of what it's doing, right? It's like it's like turning that into, a search of like all your law firm data in a searchable database. And it's unstructured data because there's structured data and then there's unstructured data. And GenAI does a really good job at understanding unstructured data, which is language, So now I might be able to type in like nail salon, like into have a M4 Pro Mac Mini, and I know using the new advanced Siri search, it will be able to probably find something like that just in the normal file system on Mac OS, like right now. But for sure, like, oh, for sure, Google Notebook LM will definitely be able to find that using natural queries. So in the same way that I asked that partner, hey, do we ever have a nail salon case before? Like, do we have any information on that? Could you like send me over the discovery? And I could say that into Notebook LM, and if it's in that corpus of data, 100% it's going to find it. The problem is with Notebook LM is you could only have 50 sources in each notebook at this time. And there's, I think, a limitation. It's a high limitation, but something like 200 notebooks or something, right? I suspect that, and I know for a fact that at the enterprise level, like some of those limitations go away. So you are going to have to pay a little bit more, but for what you'd have to pay like a human to like actually like categorize all that and like actually go and search and find it, like it's probably going to be worth it if you're relying on all a bunch of, a decade plus of data in your firm. On the other side, like if you're able to train on it and then leverage it as like a retrieval augmented generation type style for drafting, you could just tell the AI, hey, I know somewhere in my corpus of data I have this thing, draft up some interrogatories related to this thing for me based on whatever you're able to find that's related in my corpus of data. So if you need to search for it, you can just tell it to generate something based on what it's been trained on and what it has access to at the same time. So yeah, I mean, it's an amazing world we live in. Another one I'll just throw out there, but I've not used it, is Notion. I understand that Notion is another great place you could have a knowledge base, and they've integrated AI features where you could query against your knowledge base. I know some people are using it as like a second brain, and it doesn't have like the same limitation on the notebooks that Notebook LM does. But Notebook LM, I've just found to be incredibly powerful, and I haven't heard some of the same things coming out of Notion.
Yeah, I love Notion. I see the little thing pop up about AI and I'm like, I'm good. But I was one of those tools I thought, I don't need this. Like, what am I going to use this for? And then I think I did a course and somebody provided some of their content using a Notion template. So I like, all right, let me set up an account so I can access this. And now I love it. But I haven't used it in that sort of way as like a brain trust of information yet. But it is these AI things are now everywhere and they're becoming more and more common. So my question to you, because you have such a great finger on the pulse of it, but it can also be really overwhelming, is how do you analyze, is this something I should look into? Because every day there's 10 new things and they all look super cool and they all are shiny. But how do we as law firm owners say, maybe I should do the enterprise version of Notebook LM, or maybe I should look at, some of these legal specific AI tools? Like, how do we know they're going to work for us?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the how we're learning new things and how we're evaluating our tech a little bit. And one of those episodes, or both of them, that I do a lot of demos. Like I demo tech. Like, oh, I learned about something from Nikki Black's newsletter, which we were featured in, which was pretty cool. This series was featured in it, or like Bob Ambrosi's Law Next, right? Or like some other legal tech journalist or some legal tech source. Artificial Lawyers, another one that I like a lot. Richard's out of the UK. So that's a nice other perspective where I'm getting some like UK and international news around AI. And then I just go on their website and I sign up for a demo. And I was actually like maybe the first lawyer in the US to have access to Leia, Leya, which was the UK's version of Harvey. And I think they're still trying to do what Harvey's doing, but they're pivoting a little bit. And so I got access to a tool that like no other US lawyer had access to. And they just gave it to me for free so that I could play around with it and give them some feedback. Right. So like I am always, and at the time of recording, that was like over a year ago. So the moment I discover a new tool, I immediately find the website and I immediately reach out and sign up for a demo, right? Another way I'm finding out about these tools is I'm on a lot of these consulting platforms. So like Tegas, GLG, GuidePoint, Alpha Sites. Like I'm a legal tech and legal AI like expert on these platforms. And your large consulting firms, your market research firms, they reach out to me through that platform and they ask me, hey, have you heard about such and such tool? Because probably some private equity firm or some venture capital firm wants to make an investment. And so they want to talk to experts in that space. Now, this is true of like literally every industry. And I was originally reached out to like 7 or 8 years ago on the topic of legal education of all things, right? And so then I ended up on these platforms. That one was called ProSapient. And I ended up on these platforms as like a legal education expert. And then I'm just so interested in tech. I just added that to my profile on there, like legal tech and AI. And all of a sudden, like I've made not an insignificant amount of money from like being a consultant on these platforms, which is a great way to monetize all the learning I'm doing that of these legal tech things I'm not actually using in my practice. But I will sometimes discover new tools by an inquiry coming through one of these platforms. And it's like, we want to talk to customers or people or lawyers who have evaluated, and then it lists a bunch of tools, and some of them I've used, some of them I'm a customer of. And then there's like a tool I've never heard of. So the very first thing I do, and this is one of the last ways I'm actually still using Google, because I just want the website, is I will copy and paste that into Google, get the website, go on the website, sign up for a demo. Right. And like, that's how I do it. And in every other way, I'm using Perplexity. That's like not just trying to find a company website.
That's really smart. I recently came across a resource. It's called There's an AI for That. Not as like fancy and upscale as what you're doing, but if you want to just kind of keep abreast of these new tools that are coming out, it's theirs as if you were writing it with the apostrophe, but no apostrophe in the domain. There's an AI for that. And you can sign up for different categories, and legal is one of them. But I signed up for things like productivity and video creation and image creation. And you can do it as little as once a week. You can do it daily, but they just keep kind of a tabs on the latest and greatest tech coming out. So if you want to dip your toe in the water and learn a little bit more and just have these come across your desk a little bit more often, so you can say, hey, that sounds really cool, let me go check it out. I have found that that's a really great resource, and I have found some new tools. Some of them are like super beta, or there's only a handful of users, but like you said, Matthew, you could be at the forefront, and if you think it's something that could work for you, you could always reach out to them, or do a demo or dig in a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm literally telling everybody these days is, and that's a real use of literally, that's not like a metaphorical use of literally, is if you have a question about anything, just use Perplexity. And that's perplexity.ai in a browser URL space. But there's an app for Android, there's an app for iOS. Through my internet services provider, Xfinity, I get a free annual membership of Pro, and it's not expensive. It might be like $10 or $20 a month. I'm definitely signing up for my firm when that expires. And again, like, why Pro versus the free version? Well, there are limitations on things you could do. You could have shareable links. So like if I do a Perplexity search, I can share that like you share a Google Doc as a Pro user. I don't know if that's available for free users. And so you could also use the other models. So if you really like Claude, like you do, Lauren, as a Pro user of Perplexity, you could actually use one of Claude's models to do the search. I like to use Perplexity's proprietary large language model because like that's what it's designed for. And I tried to use Claude, and I tried to use the most advanced version of ChatGPT, and I just wasn't getting the same results that I had grown accustomed to being a power user of Perplexity. So if you have a question about something, and if you're not sure about anything we're talking about or an AI tool, like, hey, I'm a such and such attorney in this particular area, I do these practice areas, what's a good AI tool for me that's legal specific, that's not legal specific? Like, ask Perplexity. Like, it's probably going to do a great job of finding an answer for you. We are trying to train some folks right now on one of these nonprofit boards I serve on how to use Google Drive. And so we were going to do like a Q&A session of like how to use Google Drive. And I'm just like, how about we just, any question you have about you're not sure how to do something in Google Drive, you ask Perplexity and it will tell you. like we don't need to have a seminar. Like when I'm not available to help my mother with her phone, she calls me her Obi phone Kenobi. I say, just ask Perplexity. Like Perplexity will tell you, it will probably do a better job than me explaining something. Like, yes, I know you and I like know your quirks and I can explain that to you, but like I will not be as specific with step-by-step instructions as Perplexity. And that's for like the base level. Like I still check every citation for like something I find useful in Perplexity, because I like to see like, is this from a bona fide source? And something you, the law firm owner, should do. Even if you're not a law firm owner and you're just an attorney and you're thinking about running a law firm one day, go to perplexity.ai and type in, tell me about, or who is, and your name. This is the modern equivalent of Googling yourself. Now, unlike doing that in ChatGPT or Claude or these tools that they're trained on a lot of data, but they're not leveraging retrieval augmented generation like Perplexity is, you will not get a hallucinated answer because it's drawing from sources. You might get a wrong answer if there's a source out there that's incorrect, or you have a very common name. You'll have to say, tell me about so and so who's an attorney in whatever state you're in. And then you might have a more accurate depiction. And you'll see like the links that it's drawing from, right? So like one of the things, like when I ask it about myself, it draws from LinkedIn. So there's a reason to have a really robust LinkedIn presence, right? And actually spell things out. I've been featured by our Commission on Professionalism by the Illinois Supreme Court, and that like featured article on me is one of the top sources. And IELTS, our friend Jess Bednarz, is over at IELTS, and like I am on a board there, and my bio on the IELTS website is also being pulled from. So you have to go to these places and say, hey, I want you to update my bio to make sure that when Perplexity and other AI answer engines are drawing from it, like you could see like what's influencing the AI's version of you that it's projecting out into the world. And you could also do that for your law firm. If, say, like me, you have your personal brand and your law firm brand, and they may be different, or there may be overlaps. You do the same thing for your law firm, because that's the future of search. It's not about search, it's about answers.
Wow. I'm going to do that today. That's such a great idea. I love that, kind of keeping tabs on how you appear online. My question for you is, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I just want to underscore for listeners, because I have found this to be the biggest thing I have to remember no matter what type of AI I'm working with. But it sounds like you may have tools like Perplexity where you can ask it more general questions, like you just said, like, tell me about, right, Lauren Lester, the asset protection attorney in Denver, and then it'll give you information. But some of them, Claude, that I've had this experience, I know you've had this experience, you have to be really good at your prompts. Like putting in a generic prompt is going to give you not a great result. And this takes a little bit of trial and error. But I just want to know too, Matthew, from your experience, that's what I have found is I have had to get better at how I prompt these machines to actually get really powerful results, because just typing in, give me a social media post that talks about prenups, like maybe is okay, but you do have to give it more specific information to get better information back.
Yes, and not necessarily with Perplexity. So Perplexity does something really interesting, Lauren, and it does it fast. And I've only noticed it on like a desktop versus on the app, on like a mobile app, is it will rephrase your prompt automatically to be a better query. And
That is awesome.
it will run 2 or 3 versions of a better version of the question you asked. Now, don't get me wrong. Like the higher quality question or prompt that you put into it, it's going to be able to do a better job of rephrasing that in a more accurate way for the kind of question you're actually asking. But it's almost kind of scary to be like, oh yeah, like that was a much better way to ask that question than the way that I asked it.
Like you're calling me out, Perplexity. But I think what a great tool if you know that and you're not quite sure, like, am I doing a good job? How do I get better? Maybe start there and start to see how does it rephrase it and what types of answers are you getting? And if you're like, wow, I really like answer number 3 better, how did it ask the question? And then you can sort of train yourself on how to prompt these tools a lot better.
Yeah, and something that I might do if I'm using like a Claude like you're using, Lauren, is I might say to Claude, do you know what Perplexity.ai is? And it will say yes. And then you say, tell me about it. And it'll say Perplexity.ai is a answer engine that leverages blah, 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 right? It'll say all the things. I'll say, great. So I'm trying to prompt Perplexity to get an output that results in me finding out about XYZ thing. Help me craft some prompts that would help me get that result. And so you could use a different AI tool that is what a great use case of a Claude ChatGPT is, Gemini, is, and it will give you several probably higher quality prompts than you could come up with on your own. And this is the same way where you might be like, especially if you're a more senior attorney and you're listening to this, I don't know how to use AI. I don't know how to use this technology. What do? You go to the young associate or you go to the younger person on your team and you say, hey, how the heck do I do this? That's the equivalent. Like use AI. Like you'd use that younger person who like knows things about technology. Like you don't even need that person on your team. And if they are there, you can still ask them about it. But now you and they can both use AI and get to a better result faster. And now you're also going to get better results from Perplexity when you leverage a Claude type tool in that way. If you're not sure how to prompt, use the AI to help you prompt.
Yes, I find every day more and more reasons and ways to use it. Like, it sort of in the beginning just felt like, oh, this very sci-fi thing, and I would do a couple things like, "Oh, how cool is this?" But I am finding more and more reasons for it to use it in my practice. It has made me more efficient. It has made me a better communicator. Like, I have learned new skills through it, and I think it's only going to continue to expand. I don't currently use it for drafting, like, legal specific work. I don't know, Matthew, you're a bit more transactional than I am. So, and I know that there are more tools out there for that space because it makes sense for them to start there. So I'm curious, are there ones you've used or have heard of that can actually help you do the lawyering aspect of it, not just the running the firm more efficiently aspect?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? And I will, because we're almost at the end of our two-parter for the AI conversation, because we're almost at an hour for that. So I will say that I do have a CLE on this, and it is episode 101.5 of the Law Subscribed podcast. And I also link to the slide deck as part of that. So if you really are interested in this, I do have an hour-long conversation, an hour-long CLE on this exact topic for legal specific things. But I will highlight for you, in particular, if you're an attorney and you don't have a lot of time to figure all this stuff out and you just want to know, like, what's the tool to use? Well, at the time of recording, not a sponsor yet, but I've been using it for over a year, and that is Paxton.ai. I use Paxton for literally everything substantive and non-substantive. I've already mentioned it at least once in this two-part episode. So because I talk about them so much and they've got a lot of like users through like me talking about it, they've actually reached out about becoming a sponsor. So I don't know what the deal isn't finalized yet. So I guess look in the show notes on the Law Subscribed version of this joint series, and there might be something in there about a savings or a deal or something if you want to test out and try Paxton. Though last I checked, they still do have a freemium version, so you go try it out. It's just going to not be as feature rich as the paid version, like we talked about with Claude. Like they take a very similar approach in that regard. And I have just found that if you actually leverage Paxton like you'd use any legal professional at your firm, it's going to do an amazing job. You just, in the same way that if you ask an associate to go and like answer a legal research question and they don't actually have access to legal research, they're just going to make stuff up if they, if they're not like a well adapted human being, because AI is not a human being. It's just going to make stuff up, but it will sound a lot of legal specific because you're asking an associate attorney who has a law license. Well, Paxton uses retrieval augmented generation. And so it's actually able to also go do the research before giving you an answer. It just does it in a few seconds instead of hours, days, weeks, right? You don't like the way a clause is drafted, tell it redraft it, but more in favor of, buyer or seller or whatever, right? And it will redraft it for you instantly. Is it going to pick the exact words that you would have used? No. But from a substance over form standpoint, does it still get it across? Yes. And if you really want to go in and like edit the words, you can. I do find, because Paxton has something that at least none of the other tools have yet, is a proprietary legal large language model. So when I said it's like having an associate, it's because it actually has its own large language model that's trained on legal specific stuff. And while they do leverage the other models, they have their own specific model. So whereas like some of these other tools like Lexis and Westlaw, they're wrapping themselves around ChatGPT, Claude, other tools, but they're not actually leveraging, at least at the time of recording, legal specific large language models, which is why their results are far worse on the Stanford standardization test for these types of tools. That's why Paxton was over 96% and the other tools were at like 40 and 60% accurate, right? Because they're just asking a really smart person with a master's in English to do the thing rather than an actual licensed attorney to do the thing. And while they're both leveraging retrieval augmented generation, that's why Paxton just does a much better job, right? And I'm saying all this before I'm a paid, sponsor of Paxton too. And I think that's important. And I've always, even with my other sponsors, I've always said, there's other competitors out there. It's like ice cream, to a certain extent. Yes, you might have some secret ingredients that makes your ice cream actually better, but sometimes you just got to pick a different flavor. And, you might not be a chocolate person. You might be a vanilla person or whatever. I'm more of like a toffee Heath bar type ice cream cone person when we go to the ice cream shop. And so I like something with a little bit more flavor. So yeah, Paxton all the way is the the long-winded, shorter version of the talk I could give about legal-specific AI, with special mention to GCAI and to LawDroid.
Love it. I think what I am taking most out of this conversation is it is everywhere all the time. And if you stick your head in the sand, that's just a dumb business move. Like, don't be dumb. If you take nothing else from our series, don't be dumb in running your law firm. You've got to embrace it in some way, be intentional about how you incorporate it into your practice, learn how to use it so you can get the most benefit out of it. But as you can probably see in so many parts of our conversation, you're using these tools is going to make you better at your job. It's going to make you a better attorney. And if you are, like we started the conversation, billing by the hour or tying your value to the time that you're spending, these tools are going to cost you money. You are not going to make as much money. And so I think that's a really great way to wrap up our discussion on tech in general in this, what was probably now a 6-part series, but hey, that's how it goes, and start to focus on the finances of a business, including making money and how do we do that. And this is where value-based pricing with subscriptions, with flat fees, you can really see the benefit. And I think the profession has to go this way because these tools, in addition to the market, is going to push us that way, because we're not going to be able to bill 10 hours to draft a pleading anymore when Paxton can do it in 4 seconds. So I think this is a really great place to launch us into finances and pricing and all of that and how you actually make money with the foundation that these tools are out there.
Love it. Very excited. I could talk. I could almost just have a podcast exclusively dedicated to the business model of law, Lauren. So I'm very excited for the next few episodes here. This was great. Until next time, everybody, this has been How to Run a Law Firm in 2025 with Lauren Lester and Matthew Kurbis. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.